Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Escajeda, and I'm a policy analyst here at USCRI. It is my pleasure to moderate today's panel. As a policy analyst, I work specifically covering asylum policy and human trafficking policy. Prior to this role, I worked on the program side of things with the Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, and I'm excited to learn from my colleagues that are also participating in today's panel. For World Refugee Day this year, the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants is pleased to welcome you to our virtual panel, New Beginnings, where former refugees will have the opportunity to share with us how their personal stories have led them to working alongside USCRI and helping other refugees. So without further ado, I will introduce the panelists and allow them to give a brief introduction, and then we'll dive into the questions. The panelists will talk about the resettlement process as well as their career paths. So today we have Dr. Omer Omer, Juvens Niyonzima, Mirwais Muqbil, and Senada Alihodzic. So Dr. Omer, can you take a few sentences to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Omer Omer. I am from a Sudanese origin. I have been here in the United States since 1995, and I've been mostly working with refugees.
Thank you. And Juvens?
Thank you so much. My name is Juvens Niyonzima. I'm from Democratic Republic of the Congo, and I came in the United States in January 2020. And I'm working with USCRI as a case manager. I also work at University Hospital as a second job, where I do work in a laboratory as a specimen processor. Thank you so much for welcoming me in the panel.
Thank you, Juvens. Mirwais?
Hi, my name is Mirwais, and I'm working here with the USCRI in the capacity of community support specialist. I came to the United States in September last year, and I joined the USCRI on January 10th this year. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And Senada?
Hi, my name is Senada Alihodzic. I came originally as a refugee from Bosnia and Herzegovina, or mostly people call it Bosnia. So I came in '93 because of war, and I started volunteering at the International Institute or USCRI Erie and Meds Clinic, and then I start eventually later on working with refugees. And since '93, I've been volunteering and then working from '94 on different positions. So I'm familiar with most of the programs we offer to our clients. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for your long time of service here at USCRI, and definitely for everyone's service here. So I know some of you already briefly touched on this, but we'll just go down and ask each one of you to talk a little bit about the reasons that forced or led you to leave your country of origin. And if this is something you're not comfortable with, that's definitely all right. We can go on to the next person.
Sure.
Dr. Omer?
Yes, sure. As I said, I'm originally from Sudan, and I'm afraid our home country, Sudan, has been in trouble or troubled since its independence in 1956. We never had a stable system. It's always coup d'etat, civil wars, unfortunately, until today, as I'm speaking to you. So in 1985, the Sudanese people were able to revolt against a very brutal dictatorship that governed by force, fear, and intimidation for 15 years. So they were able to topple that system. In 1986, we were able to have a free election, really, and created a coalition or a party coalition government. It was a transparent government. It was really had given people hope that we just started on the right direction. At that time, I graduated from college, from University of Khartoum in 1986, and I joined the National Sudan TV, which is only one station. It's a government-owned station. So I work as a journalist. Working in a station like that as a journalist with an elected government was the most exciting years of my life. And we were so hopeful that our country will be one of the greatest. Sudan is known to be one of the largest countries in Africa with enormous resources. The only problem is this civil wars, corruption. So now we have a government that is elected, transparent, good, with good intention to take the country forward. With that environment, we work. But unfortunately, we were only 3 years in that process. We had another coup d'etat. The government was taken again by a junta, an Islamist, I would call them junta, not Muslim. It's an Islamist and political Islam group, a Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan. So they forced themselves and they took the government by force. And unfortunately, we were the first people to be targeted, the journalists. In Sudan, at the time, they came with something called ghost houses. And basically, these are detention outside of the any judicial supervision. And that's when we really felt our life were in danger. Many of my friends lost even their life, torture and so on. So we just felt like my life is not safe. After 18 days of interrogation and intimidation, I decided to leave the country. And that's how I end up fleeing the country and fled the country to Libya. After exactly 40 days after that coup d'etat was took over. So that's how I left my home country in 1989.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And definitely has been a long journey for you to get here today and share your experience with us. The same question, Juvens, if you would like to speak on that.
Absolutely. That's a great question for me. I would say since I was young, like 6 years old, I've grown up in trouble. Like I said, I'm from the Republic Democratic of the Congo. Is a country really in trouble with a civil war. People killing each other, shooting guns without caring. This is a child, this is a politician, is a soldier, whatever they found their way, they kill. So there are reasons which really basically for me to feel like I had to leave the place. There is a security, we never had a security. Healthy education and economy. I'll try to be a little bit in the details for those points, like security. When I mean security, I can say there's a civil war. People are fighting until today, still fighting. I've grown up finding in a war. It's been many years. The country is in a trouble. When I say like healthy, people not getting hospitals, no more qualified doctors, nurses, no equipments. Because I remember when I was younger, I used to get like injury, then I would have used like greens. I'd go just in the bush and get greens and then try to put on my body. So like 5 days, or I can put salt. It's kind of painful. That is not healthy. And people, I know many people have the cancers. I know people are getting blind Other people no more really good equipment or knowledge for healthy stuff. Which I can say since I came in United States, there is a big difference. And I never got sick again. I remember when I was there, I used to get sick malaria. Every time I have malaria. I never spent even more than 2 months without falling sick. I would say again, education. Education, if I can say, I myself, my education since primary education, I could not tell how many schools I attended. I attended many schools because of Civil War. I can be in this territory after a month or 6 months or 8 months, and then the rebels coming in there. We have to run away, leave the place, go to somewhere else. When we there, and then we can start school again. I remember I used to start under the trees. We just surround each other. If the rain comes, you run away, go to their house. So that was trouble. So that's really terrible, and people are still surviving such life. When I say like economy, you got a chance to finish up your school, you will not find a job. No jobs in there, no finances, no people can invest in the country, which is trouble like that. So all those things affect somebody's life when once you're growing coming up. So it's really terrible. So I would say really I was forced to leave the place for those such circumstances.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know in your introduction, you did mention that you also worked at a hospital, doing some sort of work there. Is your experience with the health or lack of health, did that inspire you to work in the hospital setting?
Absolutely. When I was younger, my dream was to be really a doctor or to work in the laboratory. I tried to join school when I was in Africa, where I can learn chemistry, I can learn biology, stuff like that, but still the knowledge was poor. I have to leave the Congo, come in Rwanda to continue my classes. In Rwanda, I was able now to finish and get like a diploma degree with biology, chemistry, and mathematics. And when I came in the United States, I said, wow, this is now a wonderful moment for me to achieve my goals. I never had a dream I would become a case manager one day, but I started working there in a hospital like a cleaner. But once I've been working a cleaner, sometimes I've been taking classes. After getting classes, I got applied to be working in the laboratory, and I got a job in there. So that's how it comes to find myself today working in the laboratory there in University Hospital as my second job.
Well, I'm very happy and excited for you that you're able to meet that goal that you had for yourself all those years ago.
Thank you.
Mirwais, can you talk a little bit about the reasons that forced or led you to leave your country of origin and brought you here today?
Yeah, sure. I have to say that, ever since I remember Afghanistan, my country of origin, is at war. But the last 20 years before the fall of the government of Ashraf Ghani and takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, I mean, Afghanistan was still at war. There was fighting going on between the Taliban and the government. But there was one thing that there were more job opportunities for people like myself. Now that thing have changed. I was one of the employees at the U.S. Embassy in the capital city of Kabul. Because of the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan and rising unemployment and shortage of food supplies, it was the best decision for me to leave the country and moved to the United States as a refugee, and I was part of that evacuation that was conducted in August. That was a chaotic one. So this is not the first time I've ever been a refugee. I was a refugee when I was a kid during the Civil War in mid '90s or early '90s. So yeah, so the main reason is security. We were there was a threat to people working with the Americans. So that's why I'm here, to be able to live a life that's free from danger from the people who would want to attack you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you had previously worked with, at one of the U.S. embassies before, and I'm glad that you were able to make it out definitely in August. Senada, can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about your experience that led you to leave your country of origin or leave Bosnia?
Yes, so before Bosnia, it was Yugoslavia, and we have republics: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Croatia. So in late 80s or early 90s, everybody wanted to separate, and as they declare independence, war started in each country. So it started in Slovenia, then Croatia, and eventually moved to Bosnia. And I had to leave the country. Actually, I left the country because of my baby was sick. So I was lucky that I get to the last convoy, so I can leave and save my kids. And I was raised in Bosnia and Slovenia. So by that time, Slovenia had a war in '91, but it lasted only for 13 days. So it was safe there, and I went to my mom with the kids, and to my baby. A younger boy was a year old. So I didn't have any other choice there was no medicine, nothing in our hospital. So I had to leave the country. And like I said, I was lucky because I was able to leave with the last convoy for leaving Bosnia. My husband and his parents and everybody else left, and they were actually placed in concentration camp. And some of them survived, some did not. So there was a lot of things going on because of that war. And after so many years in Europe, first genocide was in Bosnia too, even though everybody said it's not going to happen again, but unfortunately it did. So when I went to Slovenia, I took my son to the hospital. He was doing well. And then there was the program that you can sign up to leave the country, because in Slovenia, I was also registered as a refugee in transition. So there was no place that I can, even I'm with my mom, but I could not stay and wait to see what will happen in my country. So I had to sign up for another resettlement program, and that's how we came to US. Thank you.
Yes, and following up on that a little bit, can you describe your experience coming to the US and what the resettlement process was like?
Yes. So when we arrived, everything was set up for us. Caseworker was at the airport waiting for us. We They took us to apartment, and we arrived here on September 15th. We went from Croatia to US, but because of war still in Croatia, we could not travel from Croatia directly. We had to leave the plane, then went to the Slovenia, and from Slovenia, we start our journey actually September 10th and end up in Erie on September 15th. Everything was fine with resettlement. Caseworker explained a lot of things, and I tried to ask everybody to actually show me more how to do things on my own than caseworker to do that for me. I saw there was some older people who really need more attention from the caseworker. So, and that way actually, when they show me how to do things, I became more independent, and I learned, faster. Of course, I made mistake, but I learned faster things that I need to know. So, resettlement caseworker help with to get our legal documents, all proper documentations to apply for different benefits, what we were eligible, turn on the utilities, and help me how to transfer that to our name, work with employment to find a job. I registered to English class, but unfortunately I was not able to do that because I was volunteering a lot with other Bosnian clients, taking them to different places, shopping, medical appointments, and helping them interpret at the USCRI Erie. I attended few times classes and realized it's not gonna work because there is more need for the community where I could help them than so I put myself in a second plan. And I think a lot of times when we explain to refugees or whole process, that's the scary. You just arrived, you have to start from zero, new life. A lot of systems are new, and you can sit and listen when somebody explains about school system, legal system, anything like that, and a lot of times you don't comprehend. For some of those things, you need experience. You need to be here to understand them completely. There are things that, a year later, something click in my head, remembering caseworker saying me that thing, and I'm, oh, now I remember that. Now it makes sense to me. So for me, resettlement was smooth. I just did not like actually coming to Erie originally. For a second, winter came so fast. And winter 93, 94, I didn't know at that time, had many record low temperatures. So many times I would call my mom and I said, Mom, oh my God, I'm in Siberia. I cannot take this. But, with the help of my husband and some other Bosnian refugees, and then, getting the first TV and listening to the news, I realized, okay, I didn't know why schools were closed for a week, or whole week or longer, why nobody can't go out, why the stores are closed. That was something new, so I could not understand that, but it was really cold. So, you cannot go out and walk for one block. So.
Yeah, wow. That seems like what a time to move to Erie in some of the coldest parts. But it
Yeah,
seems like
and I always try to, I mean, in Bosnia, we have 4 seasons and we have snow and all that, but my mom lives on a coast, on Adriatic coast, and they don't have snow. So I was not very much in favor of the snow. So each time I try to go to my mom and spend the winter there. And then you end up in Erie and you cannot go anywhere.
yeah, it's definitely a big change.
Yeah.
But it seems like you were volunteering and helping out other refugees since you started here, and that's very, that's very inspiring to me. Mirwais, you mentioned that you were a refugee twice, once when you were younger and once more recently. Can you talk about a little bit about your experience with the resettlement process and how those times differed?
Do I need to talk about the recent resettlement or first time?
You can talk about both, but I would say how they differed and just your experiences in both and how they were, whichever was better.
Yeah, they're a lot different. Like the first time I was a refugee, we had to migrate to our neighborhood country, Pakistan, during the Civil War. That's where when we got there, we were in a temporary location for a while until there was a refugee camp set up for the new refugees, and they set up tents for each family. So we started living in tents for about 4 months in hot summer, and it was pretty harsh. But it's nothing compared to what we experience here. Whereas here, everything was pretty smooth. And when we got here, we were driven to our temporary residence from the airport, and we spent a month at a different location until USCRI found us a pretty decent house, and which is very nice. We're still there. Yeah, that was pretty smooth, and in the housing situation, the food and everything is just perfect. Just there's nothing we would complain about. Uh, you know, even when I got here, there was job openings here with USCRI, and I applied for it, and I got the job too. And I would say I feel blessed here. Whereas we were refugees in Pakistan, those were harsh times and very tough times for us. I'd say I didn't take a shower for a whole month in Pakistan when we moved there as refugees living in tents. That was, I was a little kid back then, but so it's a huge difference. Bottom line, it's a huge difference between the two experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Juvens, would you like to share a little bit about your experience with the resettlement process?
Yes. With the resettlement, for really, I would say United States is a country of opportunity, is a country of development. And I would say, though it takes longer to get resettled from our camp all the way here until to United States, but finally it get done. And once it get done, I arrived here, I really found things different. This was new world for me, everything new. I really was having a dream to see how America looks like. I used to see United States on the movies, and then when I arrived, I saw the reality. And the caseworker received me. I got resettled with USCRI, which I will really take opportunity to thank United States to put this program. I will thank again the mayor of Cleveland City. I will specifically thank USCRI, which is my family, which is my brother, which is everything for me, for whatever they did for me, getting me documents, getting me housing, getting me medication when I was sick. For really the resettlement process for me is a big part of my life, is a big part of my success and my future. Since I got resettled, now I feel hope of my future.
Thank you so much. Definitely glad that you have found that community that definitely is able to support and uplift you. Omer, can you describe your experience with the resettlement process?
Sure. I always and I often say I've been a refugee many times and in many different places. So when I fled the country, I went to Libya. And that's during Gaddafi. And for those who know Gaddafi, it's like you fleeing from fire to hell, basically. So, but at least during that time, I wasn't in Libya, I wasn't targeted personally. You know, in Sudan, I could have get killed, detained, and eventually tortured or even killed. But in Libya, it's just dangerous for everybody in there, chaotic at times, brutal dictatorship. During Gaddafi time, you could also get killed for any reason, but I wasn't targeted. Libya, then you don't need a visa to stay. That's what he thinks, that Libya is an African/Arabic country. So if you're coming from anywhere in Africa or from any Arabic country, it's your country, you stay. If you find a job, you work. And that's when I went to Libya, that's how I survived. At first, English wasn't encouraged in the country during the time. I came from Sudan with little English. So I was able to teach in kind of ground private institutions that teach English. And because I was a journalist, also I worked with as a freelance journalist with the Benghazi, that's they call it the Arab Broadcast Corporation for some time. Then eventually I ended up working as a teacher in the south of Yemen for a year. Then there was no UN to enroll us as refugees, so you cannot register as a refugee, but you stay there and basically you don't need any other paper. So I end up in Egypt. I also lived as a refugee there, and then eventually I got a visa to the United Kingdom and I traveled, and I applied for asylum when I was there. So in Europe, the asylum system, I wasn't in a detention or anything, but you apply in the home office and then they go through the process. It takes like for a year before your papers are ready. And after 6 months, you get your employment authorization card and then you can work. So I stayed in the United Kingdom as an asylum seeker at first, and then granted the position of a refugee until 1995. That's where I went to school. I did my master degree, and in 1995, I came to the United States as an immigrant. I got a visa as an immigrant, and I arrived here in the United States of America. I lived in different places before I came to North Carolina. In 1996, and that's when I started to join working with the Center for New North Carolinians. At the time, it was called Access Project. And basically, it helps refugees to access health and other services. And then I end up working a little bit with the Lutherans, and then with the North Carolina African Services Coalition. And then I left and I work overseas with refugees in the Middle East and East Africa and Eurasia. And about a year ago, I came to join the USCRI again here in North Carolina. And now I'm directing the field office in North Carolina with the USCRI. So that's in the United States, I came as an immigrant. And as you know, there is no system. So you basically travel in the country, apply for your papers, you get your papers, and you find your way out. So I did not come as a refugee to kind of like get in the structured system of refugee arrival and reception. So that's my story. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that with us. You have definitely dedicated your life to building refugees and immigrant communities, both inside of the US and in other countries. Can you point to any specific experience that led you to work with refugees and to work with, these communities?
Absolutely. Again, as I said, I'm from Sudan, and unfortunately, it's a troubled country. So in 1985, we had the big drought in Africa. It's from all the way from the Sahel until the east, well, all the way to East Africa, to Ethiopia. And Sudan was one of the most hit countries. So many people displaced in the millions, really. They lost their animals, especially in West Sudan of Darfur and Kordofan. Many of them just moved, displaced to the city and to the capital. Many of them from my own areas, from my own tribe and people came to the capital. I was in college at the time in 1985. So as students, we helped with the basically relief of these people. And believe it or not, there is still shanty towns around the capital of Sudan until today. Huge people couldn't go back. Their system was completely destroyed. That's a natural resource. This is desertification. So their lands are not there anymore. Their animal lost, and they stay there. So I work with them, and I help an organ because I was also in Sudan TV later on. When I joined, I did public relations for the international organizations. There was an organization called Concern International, and they had a project in Sudan to help displaced people. And as a journalist with the Sudan TV, I was able to promote the good work they do. They do a lot of work. They try to help people to kind of like sustain their own self. They give them small grants to do their own businesses and that's how I end up working with refugees. Even when I came later on to Europe, I as well worked with refugees because when I started my master's degree in the international development field, one of our professors was doing research in international immigration. And through him and through as a research assistant, I ended up working with a program called Croydon Refugee Project, and that's in South London. And what we do is we help refugees to apply for the same way I did apply for asylum in the Home Office. So they prepare their forms, we help in the interpretation. Eventually also I end up working with Iraqi Kurds who speak Arabic, and I from Sudan, I speak Arabic. Those people who were gassed by Saddam in the north of Iraq during the time, and they had to flee Iraq and came to the United Kingdom. So I work with them as a case manager, and that's so then that become my career. When I finished my master's degree, that's what I did. So when I come to in the United States, that's the work I know to do, and actually I have passion for it. Really, I'm the product of that unfortunate situation. So I felt like I'm in everybody's shoes. I can help them. I feel it. When I talk to them, I think there is credibility. I can tell them with authority, really. I feel what you feel. I've been there. And then I also encourage them with like, don't worry. I was there and I am out of it, and you're going to be the same. So that's the experience that led me to work with refugees, and still am. Actually, only for a very short time I worked in the academia as a professor and an academic advisor. But to tell you the truth, I didn't even like that. So then I came back again working with refugees and organizations. Thanks.
Well, thank you. It definitely seems like all of your experiences have led you to continue to help and advocate for refugees. Senada, I know you, when you talked about your initial resettlement, that you would always volunteer and help since you moved here. So it seems like that's just a big part of you. But what part of your experience specifically led you to work with refugees?
So, you know, when I started volunteering, agency offered me a job many times. By education, I'm forester. I love nature. Actually, I lie. I love everybody and everything. So at that time, we have many Bosnians coming, and I realize even when they meet with the caseworker, they would still stop by at my apartment and ask me the same questions. So I realized what we have been through, that there is a trust issue involved. So because we were during the war, actually we were, you know, killed by our friends. So, you know, Bosnians needed some time to build that trust or rebuild that trust. So after a while, I said I'll still volunteer, but then in '94 I accepted just part-time working with clients, and when I started working, actually, we with Bosnians, we bypassed that trust issue, because here I am going through the. I have same experience like they were, but the reason I was resisting to do that, it was actually very hard on me. A lot of times I didn't need to do anything for them. They just needed somebody to, you know, listen their experience. And that was very hard on me because, you know, I went through the similar situation, and somehow, you know, brought some of my, you know, hurt feelings and some other issues. And, but eventually, you know, I learned how to cope with that. And, you know, I accepted that um, position, realizing that a community, refugee community, will benefit me starting work at least part-time. So I started working part-time, then eventually I started full-time. But when you are one of the refugee, working with refugee, sometimes it has their you know, benefits, and sometimes it's really hard to work with the other refugees. So, but I'm, you know, I'm happy with that. I have a really nice stories. I mean, when I go to the store and I see a little who was at that time a little kid, and I cannot even recognize them, and they come to me and they said, "Thank you, you know, you gave me first book bag when I went to school." You know, my heart is full. I'm so happy. So thanks.
Yes, I think that's so interesting to me that you had that initial, you know, reservation to fully, you know, take a full-time job assisting refugees because you had those other passions, but you kept on hearing the call and you couldn't just, you know, you couldn't just say no.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And Juvens, would you like to talk a little bit about your experience that led you to work with refugees?
Yes. Like I said before, USCRI is the agency which resettled me when I came in the United States. If today I'm working in a refugee program with the USCRI, to me, it makes a big sense of my life, saying like it's a recognition. Recognize. I used to think why these people can do this for me, because I feel so much excited. I saw uh, compassion, people helping me whenever I had it before when I was in my former country. I never got someone to love me like I really found love here through the program, which was happening in a USRI, through my caseworker and all other people around me. I feel like I have to do something for it. And by God's grace, I get hired, and then I get opportunity to serve USCRI to help refugee. And again, another point is I love what I do. I love to help people. I love to feel like someone that can be successful within my a little bit contribution. Now I have the name of or the authority with USCRI to help multiple people, multiple nations, which myself maybe I will never get a chance. Before getting hired as a case manager, I used to help people. I myself, because I remember when I arrived, like I say, arrived in 2020 January. After just a moment, the Corona period started. It was terrible, and I was living closer to a certain church which was distributing food for people, and I used to volunteer helping people in that meantime. I love interacting with people. I have to build a relationship. I love to see someone when is helpful within my contribution at least. So again, to work with a refugee is a blessing, as I can say with me. I'm trying to see what I missed if I can give someone. I can also easily provide or sacrifice myself to touch the pain of someone or to really understand the problem or the needs of someone who comes to me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it seems like you've always had that, that desire within you to help those around you, whether it be at the beginning of the pandemic or through your work at the laboratory or through your case management work. Mirwais, also the same question, what led you to work with refugees? But also now that you have seen how the resettlement process works from, being on the other side and working with USCRI, what recommendations do you have to improve the ways in which we help refugees and other immigrants?
Okay, well, first, the fact that I've been a refugee before, and also I've been through culture shock before, so this helps me help other refugees more in a better way. So it's something I enjoy. I get phone calls and I explain to them, a lot of people are experiencing culture shock here. So I just tell people in advance it's something is going to happen, so don't panic. It's a culture shock, it's normal. A lot of people don't know what culture shock is and why they feel depressed or whatever. So since I've been through this, I explain to them, to the extent possible, and it's been really helpful. And also, as I've been an interpreter before, so I help them with the language barriers most of the time. But what I recommend is, as soon as refugees get here, first thing we need to work on is, cultural orientation. So, we need to expand it and put more time and effort into it because, they have other expectations, so I think we need to start the orientation as early as possible and also help with language classes as early as possible, because in the first 6 months, a lot of refugees have more free time and they don't, they work, but even if because they get support from government agencies and they need to worry about their language skills and stuff like that, so that they're ready in 6 months at least to be able to find a basic job, and they can have basic language skills to move up. what I recommend.
Yeah, and I think those are very important points. Just to reiterate what you said, the importance of cultural orientation as soon as possible, the language training to help, with being able to get jobs and just acclimate better, and also the importance of mental health.
Right.
And I think those are super important because you can't have health without mental health. That's a extremely important part of it as well. And Omer, also, I want to ask you about having worked on the other side, what recommendations do you have to improve the ways in which we help refugees and other immigrants?
So I'm sure it differs from place to place, from state to state, but in North Carolina here, I think part of the services has to be the driver's license. I sometimes feel like it should be even part of the core services, and we'll have to find resources for it. The reason is many of our clients sometimes stay longer without jobs because the jobs are not matched very well with the public transportation in terms of the space or the place and in terms of time. So for example, if you put somebody to work after, say, the third shift starts 10 or 11, most of our bus system here stops at 8 or 9 o'clock. And most of our, say, bus system goes only within the city limits. So while most of the jobs are outskirts of cities. So I've seen this is making a huge disadvantage. Also, even when we find jobs, jobs that pays much better, with the difference sometimes up to $3 or $5 an hour, are outside also of our reach because of transportation. So we put people in jobs that really doesn't pay very well because of this situation, and sometimes it may take them years to get out of it. But if we make this part of our resettlement system, some resources developed to it somehow or another, that part of it is like at least the head of the household is to also get the driver's license training as soon as possible and invest on giving them cars or finding them cars. That will change their life. That will shorten the self-sufficiency for the families. That's my really observation in especially in the last year. There is abundance of job, but beyond our reach, sometimes we don't even think about it. Pays $20 an hour. Yet we put people in $13 and $15 an hour because that's where the transportation is. So that's I think one of the most things I've been thinking about recently so much.
Thank you so much. And that's so important, just having that necessary transportation to jobs, because, it gives them, like you said, that opportunity to have more than just a survival job, but have a thriving job that helps them really succeed. And to be mindful of time, I know we have a few minutes left, and I have one last question that I'd like to ask each of you. So if you can keep it short, but what advice do you have for current refugees who may be facing some challenges in their own resettlement process? So I'd like to start with Senada.
Yes, advice is to listen, be open to communication, show respect even if you do not agree, be patient with the caseworker because you are not the only one that he or she is working with or helping. Schedule appointment ahead of time, if you need more attention to what you want to talk about, or what you want to discuss, what is important to you. Be specific in your requests, and do not compare your family with any other families. Thanks.
Thank you. Mirwais, what advice would you give?
Well, I would say, be realistic when it comes to, living a new life here. Start as simple as possible and not to be very choosy when it comes to, especially finding a house, just start a simple life and then over the time they can, you can, decide whether to, better your life or whatever. But so to start with a new life, you can't be very, uh, you know, just you can't have high expectations, you know, just to start as a refugee. Just, I would say live as simple as possible to start with.
Thank you so much for that advice. Juvens, what would you give?
I would say to keep welcoming people who are like new arrival, but living with a strong mind, living with a purpose, because you like in a culture orientation show them how you arrive feeling things you're in a honeymoon. After time you feel like desperate, and a moment you feel you good, another moment the life is ups and down. That's most things to understand. People don't expect or over expect. You need to contribute to yourself, you need your part so that you can be better in your wellness. We still need your part. Again, I would say live or survive with a purpose, work with a purpose, make sure you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your money, and try to develop yourself. That's what I would say, like my advice.
Thank you so much. And Omer, what advice would you give to some refugees who may be facing similar challenges?
Absolutely. And it seems like all refugees, when they come with very high hopes. And the perception about America, we all experience that. One, you think your problem are solved once you come to America. But then after 3 weeks, when we keep bombarding you like, oh, this is your obligation, this is what you will have to do, this, they get so depressed. But being there, I always have this optimistic message to them. And I tell them this Arabic / African saying is like, who his hand in water is not like who his hand on fire. So yes, I'm on the other side now. I have a job. My things are sorted out somewhat, but you're new, but you will be all right. Just you need to trust us and do your part. If you do that, you will be okay. There are programs to get you out. So don't get this, so anxious and so depressed. You're going to be there. This is a different system. You'll have to be on time to go to work. You'll have to pay your bills by the 5th of the month. And that's the way I really just encourage them as much as we can and tell them like, stop presenting things, stop complaining, trust us. If we tell you this is good for you, most of the time it is good for you. Follow it and you will be okay. That's the advice I always give them.
Well, thank you everyone so much. Thank you for attending, for all of you that are on the call, and also thank you so much to Omer, Juvens, Mirwais, and Senada for their wonderful experience that they were able to share with us. Hopefully you are inspired as much as I am to go help and serve other refugees out today. Thank you so much for the USCRI Communications and Development Departments who planned this wonderful panel. And we encourage everyone to take action on World Refugee Day by sharing statements and advocating to better the lives of refugees and immigrants and asylum seekers by contacting your representatives or by supporting USCRI's work by donating at refugees.org/donations. Once again, thank you so much. And I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of USCRI and to call all of these wonderful panelists my colleagues. Have a great day.
Thank you.